I'd like to call the meeting of the Board of Public Works of February 2nd, 16 to order and ask if anyone besides LCAT is recording.
Shirley Tancredi.
Chris Goodrow with a reminder.
Shirley Tancredi for the minutes.
All right, so we're like 3 people today, that's good.
Yeah.
All right, and ask for that we could review and approve the meeting minutes.
I make a motion we accept the minutes of January 19th, 2016.
I second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. And we will move right into, we have a guest at 5:45, so we'll move right into the superintendent's
Sure.
report.
Okay, the first item I have on the agenda is just to remind the board that we have a meeting with the Appropriations Committee today at 6:30 following this meeting, and we did post this meeting to reconvene at the Council of Aging. So this board will be going from this location to COA at 6:30 today. In your packet, I did provide a hard copy of what I had emailed out to you of the annual report submittal that went into the interim town manager or town administrator about a week and a half ago, just for your record, for your file. Fairly similar to what we've done in past years.
Yep, look great.
You filled in those numbers today?
I did fill in those numbers, correct,
Did I
yeah.
I
question?
think we all
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
it. right?
That was intentionally a placeholder.
Okay.
Make sure we read it.
Yeah.
Well, you never know sometimes. So. I was going to change the chairman and see if anybody caught it.
Yeah.
The next item I wanted to do was to go through, and we did it last meeting, but because I want to bring this information to appropriations tonight, did want to go through an update of where we stand with our operating budget. And actually, there's some good news, I think, really across the board on the operating budget. And I dug into a couple of the line items a little bit more than we've talked about in the past. Similar format in the past. This budget is, or this report is through January 27th of this year. That means it's through week number 30, and that represents 57.3% of the year that's been expended, and that's kind of the milestone to compare our expenditures to if it's a linear expenditure that we spend at the same rate every month. Last time we got together, we talked a little bit about the highway expenditures and that we had a one-time cost that we had to incur relative to some of the crack sealing work that we had done last spring, I believe it was, that created a bit of a bump in our expenses. I'm actually pleased to note that that bump, where it looked as though we had spent at a greater rate than last year, has now reversed itself in a couple of weeks. So we're actually spending, as of the end of the week of the 27th of January, we're down from where we were last year and well within the 57% milestone. So the concerns, we continue to watch that on a week-by-week basis to make certain that, you know, we're not spending at a rate faster than we have the money to be able to spend. Snow and ice, similar trends, I'd say, on building maintenance as in past months. We spend early in the year and then we catch up as we go through the year. Snow and ice, I did want to note that the numbers you see in snow and ice do not include the storm event that we had to respond to last weekend. And it also doesn't include about $40,000 of salt that we purchased over the last week or two to replenish our salt shed. So we are, if you add the labor plus the salt purchase, you'd add about $50,000 to the total that you see here, which would mean expenditures to date would be about $68,000 versus a budget of $148,000. Still looking very good at this time of year. But the number presents a, it's not quite as good as this number might suggest. I did want to talk a little bit about the energy numbers here, because energy is made up of gas, natural gas, oil, and electricity. And I dug into some of the cost increases that we had talked about previously. First, I want to note that the savings that were realized with the net metering credit purchase through the end of January is about $47,000, which puts us on track to be pretty close to $100,000 savings per year. That'll end up being something just shy of 10% of our total energy budget will be saved through the net metering credit purchase.
Awesome.
When you're looking at these numbers, and particularly look at the natural gas number, you can see that we're a bit lower than last year, but not dramatically lower than last year. And you would expect that we would be lower given how warm it has been. One of the things to keep in mind, as we've talked about before, is that our unit price to purchase natural gas went up significantly this year. We had a long-term, I believe it was a 5-year contract, a very good rate for natural gas. We still have a good rate, but not as good as we had before. So it went up from 60.7 cents per therm to 81.2 cents per therm. If you looked at it on a percentage basis, that's a 34% increase for the purchase of natural gas. That represents about half of our natural gas bill, because we then pay Columbia Gas about the same amount for transmission and maintenance of gas lines and things like that. So keeping in mind, when we take a look at our energy expenditures being down, perhaps not as much as you might expect, it's because at the same time that, one, it's been warm and that we're saving money on net metering credits, we're spending more money to purchase a smaller volume of energy. The same trend on electricity. We had a long-term contract where we were purchasing electricity at a little bit over 7 cents per kilowatt hour. We're now in a contract where we're purchasing at 9.45 cents per kilowatt hour. Again, that worked out to be about a 35% increase in electricity cost. Likewise, that's about half of what our electricity bill is. The transmission piece is the other half. So transmission has gone up some, but not as much as that. So overall, it's good news. You know, the warm weather has helped us. The net metering credits have helped us, and they've really done a pretty good job of helping to dampen what could be an increase in our expenditures. Next item I wanted to talk about was our waste budget. We are, again, trending in the direction that we expect to. I went back and I took a look at when we entered into our new contract with Waste Management. We entered into our new contract in the middle of September. In the middle of September, we ended up receiving about a 25 to 30% decrease in tipping fees. And we've been seeing that decrease in tipping fees since that time. Our quantities are up a little bit this time of year, but not tremendously, but they are up a little bit. And we're really, month by month, really now starting to see the benefit of the 25 to 30% savings from Waste Management. So as we get closer and closer to the year, we're going to realize more and more of that savings. I'm not going to guarantee that we're not going to get to the end of the year and have to rely on some of the other divisions to help support that budget, but I think we'll be able to do it much, much less than we've done in previous years. So unless the board has any questions on budget, just kind of a quick recap. I wanted you to have a chance to see the numbers before we discuss anything with appropriations this evening.
Sounds good.
One item, board I believe is aware that there is a deadline for submission of articles from town boards to the Board of Selectmen for a town meeting, and that deadline is March 1st. At the moment, it's uncertain as to what articles we may be submitting. We will likely have a Chapter 90 article for road funding, although what we appropriated last year may actually be adequate to cover us this year. We'll see. We'll see what the governor's numbers look like, because they have not been released yet. We may have one street acceptance article, although that will have to be put forward by the developer, so that may or may not happen in advance of the March 1st deadline. And then we are in the midst of some very early discussions about a potential land swap related to the landfill closure. There's a small sliver of land in which that there's some waste material on that it would, I think, be advantageous to all parties if the town and the party that owns that piece of private property can work out a land swap, and if so, that would be put forward for town meeting as well.
And they're aware of that?
They are aware of it, yes. That is an item that would be making the Board of Public Works aware of it, but ultimately would be a Board of Health issue. So we would take it to the Board of Selectmen for their support once we advance things to the point that
It's just moving a line a little bit or something?
it's trading a little bit of property for a little bit of
It goes
property
down like
at the
that.
rear of the landfill.
Into a landfill. Don't ask me why.
Pretty much should be a wash. It's about an acre of property perhaps the town might acquire, and the town might give up 6/10 of an acre or something like that. Both pieces of land are fairly undevelopable, so it really is, it actually takes two existing pieces of town property that are not contiguous, because there's a sliver of land between them right now, and would make those two parcels contiguous, so there may be a benefit to the town. Moving on, Springfield Water and Sewer Commission, as the board knows, we did finally receive an updated draft contract from the commission for I believe it's a 6-year sewer contract. Definitely there's been some progress made. I think there's more to be made. Where we stand right now is in some conversations back and forth with the commission. They've asked me to take there's probably 10 to 20 questions that I've raised over the past several months that have come at various times in the process. They've asked me to take all those questions, resubmit the ones that I think are now still relevant after they've made the amendments to the contract, and then see where we go from there. And I think most likely by the next board meeting, I'll be in a position to really dig into the details of the impacts to the town, and perhaps schedule some time with the board to go through what those impacts may or may not mean for the town. The Phase 2 stormwater regulations, which had been scheduled for release sometime most likely in the middle of January based on what EPA was telling everybody, still have not been released, so we'll see. You know, strange things happen during election years, so you know, it's been a long time coming. It's been many years coming for these draft regulations, and they should be issued final shortly, but until they're issued, then we're still working under the old regulations. A couple more items. We are working, the Department of Public Works is working with the Garden Club relative to making some improvements in the Rotary area. The Garden Club received a grant from the Board of Selectmen through funding that Republic Waste had provided to the town, which then gets issued back to outside agencies and organizations that the Board of Selectmen feels is appropriate to issue the grant funding to, and they've received funding to replace some of the larger bushes in the center of the Rotary, some of the ones that are pretty badly overgrown with, there's some invasive species in the middle of the Rotary, poison ivy, other types of things, and some of these bushes, although we've trimmed them regularly over the years, have gotten to the point that they're really too large for that location. So we made certain that we got together with the Garden Club, went over what they're selecting for plantings to make certain that it wouldn't be plantings that would obscure vehicle vision and things like that in the center of the Rotary. So we'll end up working together to that. DPW will be removing the bushes, and then the Garden Club will be coming in and planting the new bushes. Or contractor working for the Garden Club will be planting the bushes. For the public's benefit, we have made the changes that we have talked about before, which is to change the traffic lights at Parker and Allen, Elm and Mapleshade, Chestnut and Shaker, and Benton and Chestnut to all red flash in the event of there being a controller fail. The way that the lights had been set up before was the primary direction of traffic would flash to yellow, and the secondary direction of traffic would flash to red, and that was very confusing in those 4 intersections, given that there really isn't a definitive primary direction of traffic there. So what we've now changed to matches the stop signs that we have in place at those 4 intersections. We had a couple of complaints regarding the left turn arrow leaving Westwood, heading northbound on North Main Street, and we did add some timing to that as well, and I got a little bit of a lesson in terms of how to make some adjustments to that controller as well, so we're in a better position that if we need to tweak things a little bit in the future, we can do that. Another item we've talked about in the past, the department did go ahead and we installed a gate between the front and the rear parking lot at the Heritage Park playground side of Heritage Park. We installed that probably a month and a half ago, maybe. And we've been working out the logistics with the Recreation Department in terms of opening and closing that gate. And we, as of this week, we've worked out a protocol which the DPW will be opening the gate in the morning, 7:15, 7:30. And then the Recreation Department will have responsibility for closing the gate at the end of the day. Right now at 4:30, but as we get further into the season, that may get extended further into the season or into the day. And then opening and closing the gate on the weekend. So we're not bringing staff in to open and close the gate on the weekend.
Rec's going to do that?
Rec is going to do that, correct. They have staff working the weekends, so they're able to work out a schedule where they could get the gate open and closed. And we'll see, the good thing is you can fully access the playground, you have to park a little bit further away with that gate closed, and it should help to deter some of the activity that's been problematic in the backside. And I did start to dig, and I know we talked a little bit about looking at lighting and LED lights and things like that, and I'm still looking at something to help in addition to the gate at the rear of the parking lot. See, moving down to my list, one of the items we've talked about before is working with the health department in terms of getting a grease trap ordinance adopted for the town. And want to make the board aware that I'm meeting on Friday with Amy Petrosky, the health agent, and the plumbing inspector to start that discussion. I've furnished her probably a half dozen or so copies of grease trap ordinances that other communities have put in place. It's typically led by the Board of Health because starts as an interior issue, but then as it gets outside and the solution becomes many cases an exterior grease trap, that's many times where the Department of Public Works gets involved. The overall goal is to keep the grease out of the sewer lines so we don't have sewer blockages and sewer backups that are caused by grease by restaurants and other users of the system. And that would likely take effect, assuming the Board of Health is in agreement. It would either be a Board of Health ordinance or a joint Board of Health, Board of Public Works ordinance that would be adopted by the town. But it has to at least start with them, and then it could be issued jointly by both boards.
Is that a town meeting warrants, or can they just?
I believe it can be done as regulations, and if regulations, it would require a public hearing, but wouldn't have to be taken to the board of, to the town meeting, I believe. Working through my list to give the boards a heads up, I'd say we're close to the selection of a candidate for the highway and utility manager. Mr. Wilson and myself and Mr. Fenny have been working on that and expect to probably go public with a selection within the next day or two at this point. As we look through, since we're looking at 2 in-house candidates, it'll be interesting because that'll cause some shuffling of positions throughout the department as a person gets moved into that position, other openings will be created, and there'll be some opportunities for movement within the department. So we're trying to sort some of that out as well as part of this. Let's see, I think Town Engineer Dan Murphy mentioned at the last meeting that we had submitted the generic notice of intent for DPW activities to the Conservation Commission. We originally had a hearing scheduled on the 10th of February. That hearing has been rescheduled to the 24th of February, primarily because Mass DEP hadn't finished their review of what we had submitted, so they expect to have any comments that they might have by the 24th. And what we submitted was pretty typical to what another number of other communities have submitted and had approved by the local Conservation Commission, so we're optimistic it'll go through pretty quickly. Let's see, one more item just for the board to probably ponder as we wrap up this meeting a little bit is, I did hear from the town administrator that the Appropriations Committee will likely be looking for the board to provide some input relative to the need or lack of need for a human resource position or department in town. I think as the board has heard, I think in the budget presentation, I believe the Appropriations Committee is has set aside funds to help fund a human resource department or individual this year, and I believe they're looking for the primary elected boards to weigh in on whether or not they agree with that or not. So you may hear that when we get together with the Appropriations Committee later this evening. Last item I had before I turn things over to Bruce is the interim town administrator did put out a request to all town departments regarding potential uses for the old fire station, which had formerly been leased by the J.C.'s and may be leased by the J.C.'s again in the future. That I don't believe that's been firmly determined yet. My understanding is that 2 town departments did speak up, that the Recreation Department did speak up in terms of having interest in using that building, and the Council on Aging spoke up as well. And my understanding is, and long before my time, is I believe Recreation had a facility in that building at one point in time.
That was
Storage.
Okay.
no, way back when. That's where we did all the. So the whole department was.
Right. Okay.
In my day, John.
Really?
Wow.
That's a long time ago. I don't remember that.
Sure.
No respect, Dan. No respect, I don't get it.
We didn't see
In
it.
my day, there was just storage of helmets and shirts and stuff. So.
We didn't see a direct DPW use for that facility, but we did speak up and ask the town administrator that as needs come forward and there might be a need for building modifications or renovations, please to keep us in the loop so that we can provide some input and guidance on that. And thus far, I haven't heard anything back from the town administrator on that process.
Okay,
I'm good.
all right. You're up, Bruce.
Okay. Because we've had such great weather these past few weeks, we continue to work outside. Many of our tree work orders have been completed, exception of some of the larger trees that we need to get an outside vendor to come in and handle for us. But we continue to do tree trimming through all town roads and plow routes and everything else. We should be wrapping up a lot of those activities this week or early next week. We've also have kind of taken a break from potholes because there isn't any because of this, the nice weather. We've actually started repairing catch basins again, which usually doesn't happen during the winter time. So
That's
we'll be
great news.
continuing those activities probably for the next, to the end of this week at least, depending on how warm the days stay. We've also received truck 77. It came in yesterday. So that's out in the garage if the board wants to take a look at it. We're hoping truck 78 will be in maybe next week. That truck needed a little bit more work before it was ready for us to pick up. And I believe the MHQ has had some difficulty, I believe, with staffing that facility and getting some of these trucks out. So they had a little bit of a backlog, so that's why it's been taking so long. Also, last week, we did complete the irrigation system over at the high school. It's ready to get turned on this coming spring. It's been loomed. The only thing that has not been done is we need to go out there and seed it once the nice weather
These days like
comes
this, do it
on.
now.
Yeah. So everything's good on that perspective. And also, we did receive all that materials last week also for the rebuilding or kind of restructuring of the JV and varsity field. So all that material's in. No frost in the ground. So hopefully, if it stays dry and the weather stays nice, we'll be able to get that done before spring. So we're not under the gun to get those fields prepped for this coming baseball season.
We have, if you get to the transfer station, you'll notice that we've started to create some bins using concrete blocks for storage of materials, and for the higher quality clay material that was brought in, it was one that we wanted to make certain we kept it in a defined area so that we didn't spill out into areas and get lost. So as we start finalizing some of the pad areas, we're now creating more permanent storage areas up there as well.
A little more organized. Also, as far as building items to discuss, we did receive 5 quotes from vendors for the Maple Shade swing sets. I reviewed those with the school department, and the school department's kind of the awarding authority on this project, but I'll go through the vendors that gave us pricing. New England Recreation Group gave us a price of $17,300. Compan Inc. for $17,138. O'Brien & Sons for $15,690. Ultiplay Parks and Playgrounds Inc. for $14,649. We had BYO for $14,150, but they did not meet our bid specification, so we kind of disqualified them from that process. Play Power Little Tykes Commercial came in at $12,881 also, but did not meet our bid specifications. So the school department's going to be awarding that contract to Ultiplay Parks and Playgrounds Inc. for $14,649. And based on that, depending on lead time, we'll probably get that installed hopefully within the next month.
That's favorable to the article.
Yes,
As far
yes.
as money.
Yep. One item that didn't include is the mulch that goes along with that. We kind of priced that out separate to keep it kind of out of the mix. So like I said, we'll get started on that as soon as I know the delivery date of that equipment. Town hall renovations project's going well. We're currently finished drywalling, we're taping now. All my tile did come in late last week, so we're hoping to start tiling next week once we finish taping. And actually, we got to cut in one door in the ladies' room. We'll be doing that tomorrow night after hours to keep the dust down. But renovations are going well. No big surprises. And that's all I have for you.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
And I saw the carpet was up. That gets a similar carpet or a different Berber carpet? Or?
A whole different carpet. I actually have it all picked out, but I've taken that portion out because we had some other asbestos tile. Instead of having them come in and doing a small little section, I had them do that. And especially with the construction going on, keep the dust out of the carpet so we don't have any issues in the future. And like you said, once we get the bathrooms done, I'm hopeful probably the end of this month is to actually get into the offices. So we'll be doing our next step as far as our asbestos remediation and everything else. So we'll be working our way down. So it's going to look a little out of place at first, but once we get those offices done, everything else, then we'll backfeed with carpet and stuff like that. So
Excellent.
What's the schedule? You think we'll be done by the town meeting, or you think?
yes,
Okay,
we will
so
be done.
people will see
Yes.
what we've done with the amount of money that
Yep.
we were given.
Actually, the next portion of the project's going into the offices. I think is going to be a little bit more easy. It's not as far as extensive as far as demolition and everything else. We're just moving walls and things like that. So I think the next portion of the project's going to go a lot smoother.
Or if we want to do a short LCAT video or something
Sure.
for people who don't go there and don't see it.
Yep. Sure.
So maybe we can just
Reach
hook
out
up
to
with
Don.
Don Mackey and see when it might be appropriate.
Okay.
Okay. Completed the building manager's report. And it's just a little early, but I believe Stephen Crane is here. Correct?
I believe he's here.
Yeah, all right. I'm just checking.
He's in the building.
Do you have anything else you want to do first, or you want to jump right into it?
No, just some close-up type things, so we might as well.
So if you're ready, we're ready.
All right.
All right.
I'll launch myself into it.
Okay.
So here,
Sure.
Wherever you want.
members of the board, Dr. Parent, thank you for having me here tonight. I'm Stephen Crane, I'm town manager of Long Meadow, and I wanted to just have the chance to address the board to really pitch an idea for the board's consideration, and I obviously don't expect an answer this evening, but just something for you guys to think about. I'm sure, as has been reported capably by Chris in the reminder, Long Meadow is engaged in the process to replace our DPW facility. Or if you're familiar with the facility, but it was it was built in 1931, and while it has had some additions over time, it really is beyond a state of disrepair. Is really flattery for the facility. And the time has come, and I think the town of Long Meadow recognizes the time has come to build a new facility. The current site is plagued by issues, not the least of which is its presence in the 100-year floodplain, and it's the site of a former burn ash dump, so the soils aren't very good. I believe permitting would be an extreme challenge in terms of trying to elevate the site to the point where you could flood-proof some of the building and then find compensatory flood storage in another part of that floodplain. I mean, we met with the DEP, who regulates the site as a solid waste recycling facility, and while they technically said it's not impossible to build there, it didn't certainly seem like they were very optimistic. I suppose it is possible to rebuild there in the same way that it is possible that if I work hard enough, I could be the quarterback of the New England Patriots. Probably the same level of probability, though. So, we had a community forum about the current site to say, well, we can't have it there. So we've been looking at other sites in Long Meadow. We have it on legal authority that the town cannot purchase land in another community without, I believe, a home rule petition from either both communities or the community in which the land would be purchased. And that's something that it could be a subject for future discussion. I mean, I think the thing that Long Meadow has as a restriction or a constraint really is our lack of developable land. East Long Meadow has developable land. So as we've looked at the sites with Weston and Sampson, our engineer, there really aren't very many parcels that exist that are even, like, 5-6 acres that are big enough to take the site. And there certainly aren't very many that don't have buildings on them. One parcel that we've looked at is a portion of Wolf Swamp Fields, which is right on the line with the town of East Long Meadow. The power line's kind of right, and that has some appeal. I think it really has an appeal for multiple task forces that have looked at it. It's usually been number 1 or number 2 in the site evaluation, not least of which it's no cost to the town. It is Article 97 land, so it would require a majority vote of the park board, 2/3 vote town meeting, and 2/3 vote of the legislature. But, like I said, it's essentially shovel ready, it's flat. It is kind of tucked away. I know people feel like it's a residential neighborhood, but it is, the area we're looking at is quite far from the nearest homes. The big problem there is, I'm sure as you guys know, if you have to pass through that way when they have, jamborees and things like that, the traffic and the parking is, chaotic. One of the things we'd look to solve would be addressing the parking and traffic flow issues through there as a part of our project. So like I said, it's not just, my word. I had a town manager task force go through all the things, all the sites. Weston and Sampson actually has a somewhat proprietary methodology for site evaluation and these filters that they apply, and it is somewhat subjective scoring, but they rated it out at the highest. And if we were able to, but it was like 69 to 67 for the Grand Meadows Tennis Club, which is a private owned site that we're doing some due diligence on as well. But it's assessed at 2.2 million, so you're talking millions in additional cost at least. So all this lead up is to kind of where we are today, and in discussing this with the community, they have some concerns about field space, which I'm sure comes as no surprise to anybody here. Field space is highly valued by the community. Youth sports are viewed as an important component of quality of life, and certainly I have been doing this type of work long enough to know you don't pick fights with people who are into youth sports, because they are a passionate constituency in the community, and youth sports are an important component of quality of life. And as I've led off every meeting saying, if we could build it at the current site, why would I be here, trying to have this trying to deliver this message that nobody wants to hear, or if there was a site that was easy and convenient, it had already been done. So one of the things we've received from feedback is, look at other towns and other communities, and we know that, like I said, our legal counsel says we can't buy it, and certainly I don't know how East Long Meadow would feel, but the town of Long Meadow buying a piece of property to have its public works facility, which is not an industrial facility per se, but it would certainly take it off the tax rolls if we did that. As I was kind of contemplating options, I thought, we go to, not he and I together, but people in municipal government go to conferences and trade shows and all these other things, and the thing you hear all the time is regionalization. It's almost gotten to the point where it's a word that maybe doesn't even mean all of that much, but I do believe there are valuable ways in which partnerships can be formed, and those partnerships are usually started by just a pitch very similar to this. And so as I was thinking about, what's the future, I thought, I owe it to my community anyway to ask about what is the view of a shared facility. Long Meadow and East Long Meadow, just on kind of a 10,000 foot level, similar size, similar road miles, and so I would guess we're probably similarly sized and equipped facilities. I mean, we're both customers of the Water and Sewer Commission. I don't know if you guys do any contract plowing. We do not do any contract plowing. So similar operations. I mean, similar enough where if you brought in Weston and Sampson to look at your ideal facility, it would probably look very similar to what they did for us. So Long Meadow, I think the community, the one thing I will say is the message that comes through loud and clear from community members in virtually every discussion is, we know we need to do it. We just don't want to do it here. We don't want to do it there. And so I think Long Meadow, the residents of Long Meadow have really embraced the fact that they need to make this commitment to the Department of Public Works. There's just not a lot of great options for where to site it. So I thought, well, if the $15 million we're projecting for the community isn't really, you know, people aren't really walking away from that figure. I mean, some people are gonna blanch out, of course, but by and large, people are like, well, if that's what it costs, we need to do this. And we're really strapped by a site. The theory goes, if we need a 42,000 square foot facility, which is what we have designed right now, alone, and say, by extension, East Long Meadow, that you guys were gonna get a new facility, it would be 42,000 square feet. Because we have similar size, then maybe combined, we could do it with a 65,000 square foot facility. Combined maintenance bays, locker rooms, you know, things like that, shared spaces. You know, there would be the vehicle storage areas would maybe need to be separate because of operational considerations, but there could be some, in theory anyway, some efficiencies to be gained by sharing a facility. And with the availability of land that is suitable for this type of thing in East Long Meadow, you know, Long Meadow, I think, would be willing to pay, and I know I'll speak for the voters, but I think the paying for a greater than 50% share of the facility in exchange for having it sited and not taking up valuable either taxable property or playing space would be something that I think Long Meadow would embrace. So I thought I at least should go pitch the idea. I know that East Long Meadow is got a potential transition coming up in April, and so that's why I don't expect any kind of, you know, yeah, we're on, where do we sign up, you know, but I thought I should at least make the pitch now and have, you know, kind of throw it there for food for thought, and get your, you know, feedback.
Okay. Thoughts, questions? We got a couple.
Yeah, I mean, I do,
Do you know of other examples? I know sometimes police and fire kind of coexist. Do you know of any other Massachusetts DPW? Have you looked into other coexisting DPWs?
Not off the top of my head, but I do look at the process we're going through with the regional dispatch, which has been, and I don't know where the regional dispatch process is going to end up, but I look at how the 5 communities have worked together through the process and talked about shared needs, and I think the similarities and synergies really between dispatch operations have really opened up some eyes, and I think get most of the chiefs embracing this idea and seeing how similar the communities really are when you come right down to it from an operational standpoint has really kind of what prompted me to kind of think of this idea. And if you can do it for a dispatch center, you can do it for a police department, fire department, I don't see any reason why you couldn't do it for a public works department. I think if we had a DPW that had on-site, you know, an on-site well where we were, you know, producing water or treating wastewater, that would be an entirely different matter, because it would have to be fixed at that place where that treatment plant or where that production of water is. Neither of us do that, and so our facility could be anywhere really, and then it's traffic analyses and, you know, topography and environmental considerations, but we're not fixed to be at a certain point because you guys don't have a pump station here or anything, do you? No.
On site, no.
Yeah, so it could be anywhere, and that's where I think Long Meadow and East Long Meadow have, like I said, in concept, have enough similarities where it could work for us, I think, where it may not work for a lot of other communities.
So have you penciled or spreadsheeted like the dollars to kind of see how those flow? Like, so if we had 42 and 42, but we only need 60, and, you know, we got to pay for or whatever, but then the in lieu of taxes comes in somewhere, and or not paying taxes comes in somewhere, because into perpetuity, you know, the land would produce tax revenue for the town. So somehow we've got to do some spreadsheets to kind of look at what's the impact of dollars and cents, because let's face it, most communities are, you know, faced with an issue with dollars and cents. At the same time, space and land and where do we build it.
Agreed. Long Meadow is 98% built out, and we are probably going to be the first community in the Commonwealth that hits the $25 per thousand tax cap on Prop 2.5. So I think out of the 351 cities and towns, we're number one in that regard in terms of feeling that pressure. And not because of, profligate spending, we have a AA2 bond rating, so we're a well-managed financial community. It's just costs go up greater than 2.5%, and our ability to, we have like no new growth. I mean, we have $125,000 or whatever, that's nothing for new growth. And so as costs go up, new growth, we don't have the new growth to supplement that, the costs increasing above 2.5%, even though we raise our tax levy up to 2.5%. Well, we're gonna hit that $25 per thousand mark, and there'll be no more, we're paying highest tax rate and starting to shed services as costs continue to escalate. So we are in a long-range planning process to address this very issue. That's one of the reasons why the Grand Meadow Tennis Club site, to me, you can fit the facility there, but you're talking not only whatever it is, 30,000 he pays now. If it was developed to its highest best uses, like doctor's offices or something of a higher density, it could be $100,000 and more in perpetuity. So we're very sensitive to that issue, and I think there's no true answer. I mean, there will be a true answer to that through some kind of intermunicipal agreement that would have to be constructed. But you would look at reuse of the Pondside Road site. We're looking at a potential for a solar field, you won't be able to build down there. I mean, the same reason we can't build that down there. It's the same reason nobody else probably could either. But a solar field or something, we would want to try and generate some revenue from that. And then I think if you moved out of this site into a new shared facility down the industrial park, how would this site be reused, and would there be opportunity to get tax revenue from here? So I think that would be kind of we'd look at it in a holistic way. But no, I have not spreadsheeted it.
Yeah, so we probably need to get something from you if you're thinking about how all the money flows, because, we don't have the dollars and cents figured out. And then, obviously, I'm not sure what our appetite to the taxpayers is. We have a functional service building now. So to help our neighbors, which we love to do, we just need to come up with a $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 to help Long Meadow. We got to figure out how to pitch that, because right now we're functional. We're going to take land off the tax rolls, and we need to, oh, by the way, get closer to our levy limits, and in our, maybe even probably have to have an exclusion, a debt exclusion for that kind of money. So you got to help us a little bit, I think.
I
The
think,
concept
yeah.
kind of makes some sense. I'm not saying the concept doesn't make sense, but we might have to kind of figure out where it's a win-win as opposed to a win and we got to pay a lot or something, or lose a lot. So
I guess I'd look for some, and we can certainly do that. We're about to have our OPM come on board as well, and so I think we have some capacity to generate some kind of document like that. I just don't know, the timing of that is key, and so we'd want to know more specifics about like which particular parcel of land, if it's town owned or if it's privately owned, and get a sense of cost. And
I don't think there's any town land down in the industrial park.
Yeah.
So if we're talking in the industrial park, I think it's all on the tax rolls and it's all private parcels. So I know there is some property that has for sale signs and available signs, so I don't think it would be too hard to get comps or numbers or see what somebody would be willing to sell for. Got to go through planning. I'm not sure of whether planning board and DPW facilities, we can put them anywhere in the world.
No, municipal uses are not exempt from the planning board regulations, so you'd have to comply.
Well,
The
most
same.
places have them by right, and everything. Most municipalities have them by right, and most don't.
To the extent that it may be allowed, but again, you'd have to take a look at the regulations. I believe that's an industrial garden zone.
Garden industrial.
And
which
I'm
has
not
its own
familiar
stuff.
with the limitations, but whatever they are, you would have to
Yeah.
comply.
I just see it as, I can see it works in some communities like regional schools. Hamden and Wilbraham came together to put up a regional school because they don't have enough for any one community to build a decent sized school. But I think for us, Stephen, I think we get laughed out of town if we ever brought it up. I mean, there's no way we can just say that out of the blue, we need a new facility.
Yeah, that's the big inhibitor.
Yeah,
Right now, we
right.
don't need a new.
Yeah,
We have
and by the
Department of
time
Public
we
Works
need it,
facility.
Yeah.
by the time we need it, you're gonna be another 85 years.
Yeah,
into your old
the
facility.
timing is key because,
Yeah.
if you said, geez, in 5 years, I could see us really being willing to embrace this. We can't wait the 5 years, and that's the tough part for me. The only thing I'll say is this. because of the way I think conceptually, and again, we haven't done pen to paper, but I think conceptually, if we did a 62,000 square foot building and Long Meadow was committed to 42,000 square feet, it would represent tremendous value proposition for the town of East Long Meadow, completely out of sequence from like as you look at your long-term municipal facility needs and everything else. It's totally out of sequence. If someone made the pitch to me, I'd be like, well, if someone made the pitch to me about a new fire station, like we want to do a regional fire, well, we just built our fire station in 2007, so yeah, even if it was a great value proposition, I'd be like, man, sorry, I mean, it's just not right for us right now. I don't know about this facility here and what the long range, view is of it. You have a relatively new salt shed, and but it's more. If you're going to go out of turn, you better get a good
Right.
bang for your buck. I truthfully believe that if this ever played out, it would be a good bang for the buck. But you're right, getting there kind of politically, and like I said, right now, it's a tough time for the town. There's a lot of uncertainty about what's
Everybody's
keeping
concerned
the
about the
form of
$25
government
for
and-
us too.
Yeah.
Right, we're right there. And
We sat at the hearing the other night, and that's what they were pitching to us. Is that
What's that?
The $25.
25 per
We're
thousand.
gonna hit the cap if we don't figure out how to curb our spending.
Mhm.
Right, and we have, this facility functions very well. I mean, it's not state-of-the-art by any means,
Mhm.
but it handles all our needs from now into
Mhm.
a long foreseeable future.
And then it isn't too much of a secret, the town hall's got some things going on where we're working on doing renovations there.
Mhm.
And then the school has been applying for,
Yeah,
looking towards.
high school, yeah.
Yeah, so you guys led us right into that, I think, by putting a nice new high school over there.
They got a new high school now. We.
Well,
All right, so
you know how that works.
Yeah,
so-
you guys have got tennis courts first.
Yeah, so now.
this facility would be, probably wouldn't even get on the list.
Right.
Yeah. No, I hear all that. Like I said, to some extent, I appreciate you giving me of your time because I think the benefit for me is to go back to my community and say, I asked.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I understand that.
And when I met with Bob about this, and it's funny because I've worked in government my entire career. Despite that, I still really don't like doing much things for show. I'm into doing stuff that, you mean what you say what you mean, and then you do what you said you were gonna do. And so I wasn't gonna waste anybody's time on this if it wasn't a sincere thing. It was only, I should just go ask him. But then I started thinking about it. I thought, if money were no object and, I was king of the world, how would I look at this? And I'm like, this would make sense. On operational and financial levels, this would make sense up here. In the real world, it's a tough sell.
Right.
Granted. But I thought because there was conceptually, I think, a mutual benefit, I thought, well, I'll at least throw it out there because I've never attended a public works board meeting. I've never watched one, so I don't know where you guys' heads are at.
This is prime time.
Yeah. I mean,
there is some good
I'm engaged on
concepts
public
here.
television quite enough as it is, so I thought I'll just go and see where your heads are at, get a sense of where the facility is and just open the dialogue. We've got some months to go before we're gonna nail something down, and if something in the meantime breaks, or you think of something, we could try and take a different approach. But all the things we're identifying are absolutely things that we would need to nail down in whatever intermunicipal agreement we come up with. In terms of taxes and the cost and what would it look like and everything else. But I didn't go through that exercise because if it's DOA, I'm not
I think
gonna-
it's a pretty tough stretch, I gotta
Yeah,
agree with
it's-
Dan.
I would-
But I wanted to listen as
Yeah.
well,
Oh,
because
yeah. No, you
not
gotta do
knowing-
your job, and we
not
want
knowing
to
the
at
other
least,
half of it.
accommodate you and at least,
There is some
Yeah.
good concepts there.
Yeah, there are.
But, it's a real hard sell because, this facility works,
yeah, if we were in the same situation where we both are looking at building a new building, and we are abutting communities, and we have a piece of land right there that is perfect.
It would be perfect.
Yeah, it would work.
And I feel your pain, because fields, taking fields and recreation away to put, trucks and,
Yeah, I think
Bucket
it's an
loader.
industrial facility, and I'm like, that's not really accurate to say because the only industrial thing is the bays, is the maintenance bays. We're not breaking rocks, we're not making
No.
asphalt.
Mhm.
All the industrial work happens out in front of your houses,
Right.
But what about the truck traffic? I mean, it's already,
Yeah.
look around, you know,
Yeah.
they're on the streets every day, the work takes place out there.
Yeah.
We're working through it, and I think, you know,
No matter what.
I think that Grand Meadows is your right.
I think that's your best bet. No matter what, it's gonna be a land acquisition.
Yeah, it's away from,
I think the trouble with Grand Mountains would work. It's the cost differential. And what I tell people is, you're really talking 2 youth soccer fields in Long Meadow. And I tell people, if I offered to build you 2 youth soccer fields for $3 million, you'd laugh me out of town. But that's essentially the trade-off you're making by saying Grand Meadows
Yeah.
over
right, but
Swamp Fields.
if you look at our projects that are on our wish list,
Mhm.
it's athletic fields.
Yeah,
There's such a shortage of athletic fields, and you can't,
They don't go
there's no
away.
more land
Yeah.
to really acquire to put athletic fields on, at least we haven't found any. So anything that we've got, we're doing a study now of our Heritage Park, because there's acreage there, and we're looking at redesigning it, and where can we get more fields? We did acquire some open space at the Brown Farm, and we're looking at that, but it's,
we have,
ball fields,
we
you
have a
know,
couple
you're
of town
strong in
parcels.
athletics, and you gotta, you know,
One of the things
soccer moms are pretty,
Yeah,
pretty adamant about.
they are, and like I said, I respect all that. I mean, we're looking at a couple of different alternatives to mitigate the loss of the field space. We know that that's a big, as soon as in one breath it was, yeah, that site really makes a lot of sense, and we need to deal with the fields issue. I mean, everybody's known that since the beginning. Grand Meadows, like I said, it would work for the facility. We're gonna have the geotech rig out there Thursday, and we're gonna do a sidewalk, so I've never been inside the building. My big thing, and you guys kind of can appreciate this, is because this is not a great stretch of road to come in and out of, our number 1 and number 2 crash sites, and I don't know which order they're in, but it's Dwight and Converse, and Dwight and Williams. So our trucks, by and large, are gonna have to go into our 2 top crash locations every day.
You better drive safely.
Yeah.
Well, we go into the sunrise.
You wanna talk about the rotary?
Every day.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
They're big yellow or orange trucks usually. They
Yeah,
usually have
people will usually
lights
get out of the
on.
way. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, honestly, I hadn't really thought of that.
They're not going, they don't have to beat the traffic to Boston, they just gotta get across town, so they shouldn't be in that big a rush. So
Yep.
we should be able to do it.
No, that is an excellent point.
But we feel your pain. I mean, we feel your pain. If we had the same situation, it probably would make sense. I mean, if we were in trouble here, and we're not, we probably could go further, but.
Well, I know, like I said, I you know, maybe a wall will collapse or something.
Wish us doom, right?
Yeah, we'll be back at it. No, like I said, I am very grateful for your time. I know
Yeah.
you guys are
Appreciate it.
volunteers, and I'm grateful for at least hearing me out on it. I know it's, and not laughing me out of the room,
No.
because
No, because
on its face, it sounds like a crazy idea, and when I first thought of it, I thought, that's crazy, but then as I kind of mentally drilled down into it, I'm like, you know, if the timing was right,
Right.
it makes a lot of sense.
Right.
I can't really gauge your timing, I have a sense, I mean, we work very closely together, the 2 communities work very closely together.
Right.
So I thought, I'll go ask and see what their timing's like, so. And like I said, I do not expect an answer tonight. I wouldn't expect anybody to be able to commit to anything until April. And we'll, you know, and after that, if there's a revisiting of the conversation, I certainly would hope that we could do that. But for now, I definitely, if the prospect still keeps churning, I definitely will think about it in the terms that you've laid out, and with illustrations that you want to see for kind of selling it. But.
I mean, if you were gonna build 84,000 and pay taxes, we could probably
We'll probably work something out, right? Yeah.
So we could probably find some
Yeah.
land and we could work something out. But,
Yes.
so
Yes.
we're somewhere between here and there, I think.
Yeah. Well, we'd have to drag in Enfield or something like that to get that deal done.
Yeah.
So, well, listen, guys, I don't know if you have any more questions for me, but I am grateful for your time.
I think we're good.
And listening to me.
Thank you, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks a lot.
This facility works.
Other business?
fortunately, we're not in that same situation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And our game plan is to keep this building 40 years old as the town hall. Keep it as long as the town hall's been.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with this facility.
No.
Plenty of space.
Yeah. And even even if there were any desire to try to redevelop this site, people need to keep in mind that this has been an industrialized site for many, many years prior to the town owning this site, so it's likely not an easy site to redevelop either.
Right.
No, it's not gonna be real desirable to
Yeah.
redevelop.
Yeah.
All right.
I had two other items.
Go ahead.
One item was just to note for the board's benefit that Chairman Mayberry and myself and the Chair of the Board of Selectmen, I believe, and Chair of the School Committee have a meeting at the Council on Aging on 2/16, February 16th at 7:15 to talk to the Appropriations Committee, and I believe the Capital Committee as well, regarding strategies for funding of capital projects, perhaps this year and going forward. And that's been a result of the chair of those three school committee, Board of Selectmen, and Board of Public Works getting together multiple times and putting their heads together and coming up with some thoughts and ideas about what could be done. And then to that end, looking ahead towards a next meeting date, one potential next meeting date would be the 16th, would be the same day, or likely the following week on the 23rd.
I will be away the 16th, so 23rd works for me, but if you have to meet.
Let me see. So I had the 23rd as a tentative, that's gone, right? For appropriations and capital.
That's correct.
All right, so yeah, that's good for me, 23rd?
23rd?
Works for me.
All right. Next meeting is February 23rd, 5 PM, Service Building.
Motion
Anything else?
to adjourn this meeting to go.
Reconvene at 6:30 at the COA.
Right.
All in favor? Or second? Do I hear one?
All in favor?
No, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, 6:30.